Can you focus on this, please? So let's look at this page. This is where I worked on this example. The example I gave you guys here. So the example, the question is, a sample of 5 individuals was randomly selected from a population of 50 subjects who are suffering from anxiety. This sample of 5 individuals, that is n equal 5, was selected to undergo anxiety therapy. The researcher measured their level of anxiety before and after the therapy. So 5 individuals, we have the level of anxiety score before and after. Now the question is, did the therapy reduce anxiety using alpha equal 0.05? So these 3 pages, the next 3 pages, you have the calculations, and this is how we are going to utilize or work on these calculations. So if you look at step 1, formulate hypothesis. This is the same thing I have done, what I am talking about on the first page. Exactly same thing I have done here. So step 1, formulate hypothesis, alternate H1 or HA is mu sub d not equal to 0, and null is mu sub d equal to 0, and that 0 indicates no difference. Why are we using 0? What do you think we are using 0? Anyway, our main focus, the assumption is that if we are providing therapy, then the assumption is it is going to improve their level of anxiety, reduce their level of anxiety. So that means there has to be a difference between this and this. That means this D cannot be 0. That's why we are writing as mu D not equal to 0 as our alternate. It cannot be 0. Because the idea is, if we are providing therapy, it's going to reduce the level of anxiety. So it is going to make some difference in their anxiety level. So given that situation, there has to be some difference, whatever it comes out. But it cannot be 0. 0 means there was no difference. That's why in our alternate hypothesis, we are assuming that it didn't do any good. Step 2, write down the information you have been given. If you look at the question, it says, did the therapy reduce anxiety using alpha equal 0.05? So write down the information you have been given to you. Alpha equal 0.05, you are dealing with one sample, so degrees of freedom is n minus 1, that is 5 minus 1 equals 4. And next thing is, you look at the last page, this T table, and then you find out the T critical. So we look for 4 degrees of freedom, alpha 0.05, two-tailed test is right here. Our T critical, according to the table, is 2.776. So write these things down. This is the step 2. So step 2, write down your alpha level, degrees of freedom, and T critical. Now you start getting into this calculation step by step. So first step, remember I told you we need to write down these columns. So these are the columns we are going to have. We are going to have 5 columns. First column, the subjects, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoever or how many subjects you have, you need to write these down. Second column, the measurements before, which is x1. Third column, measurement after, that is x2. Fourth column D, which is x2 minus x1. And remember when we were, toward the very beginning, when we were calculating sigma x minus x bar square to calculate variance, what do you think we squared those things? Yes, to get rid of the negative. We are doing exactly the same thing here, because you can see we have a whole bunch of negative signs. We need to get rid of the negative because the negative doesn't make any sense. That's why we squared. We are doing exactly the same thing. We are doing d squared. So these 5 columns, okay? Once you are done with these 5 columns, then you look at this column for d and write down this sigma d. And then sigma d squared. So just write down those. Then we need to write down the mean d, which is, you can write it as, I wrote them down both. According to the book, you should write it down as m sub d. Or I'm so used to writing x bar, so I wrote it both of them down here. So m sub d, which is this one here, summation of d, when you add up all these d's here, including these negative values, divided by r. So this summation of d, sigma d was minus 60. We have 5 people. So minus 60 divided by 5 is minus 12. So keep that one. Move over to the next calculation. So basically we have 4 stages of calculation. First stage, you write down all these columns, 5 columns. This is the first stage. You write down all these columns and then you add, then you do this sum of d and sum of d squared. First stage. Second stage, you calculate m sub d. Third stage, you calculate the standard deviation. And all the formula we are doing here, they are given on